Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on episode 36, season 3 of the Standoff with Brad and Richie here on New Zealand Sport Radio. We're here live every Wednesday on Facebook throughout the World Cup. Evening, Richie. Some more big scores again, and the start of the women's tournament happened this morning. But we're now heading into the business end of the Men's World Cup. What did you think of that final round?
Yeah, I didn't know whether I was watching the Rugby League World Cup or the Cricket 2020 World Cup for a while. The score's pretty bloody high.
Yeah.
But we're getting into the business end now, so hopefully we see some exciting encounters.
Yeah, fingers crossed we get some close ones, that's for sure. But while we're here live on Wednesday evenings, 8 p.m, you'll also catch our show on our podcast on iHeartRadio at your convenience. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. As always, we're going to include everything you need to know in the week that was Rugby League, including our top stories of the week, a review of the third week of the World Cup. We'll then stop and answer some questions from you, as well as some questions we've got for each other. We'll then end the night previewing week 2 of the women's tournament, week 1 of the wheelchair tournament, and the men's quarterfinals of the World Cup. So, action-packed. Hopefully we get it in on time tonight, Richie. And I see Simon's here. Evening, Simon.
G'day, Simon.
But yeah, so remember to send us comments and questions throughout the show, and we may as well just jump straight into the top stories of the week.
Let's do that.
All right, first one, I've got a whole page of it here because there's quite a bit. But November's finally upon us, which means that players without a deal in 2024 are free to speak with clubs. I went through a list. Some of these, as we were talking before the show, Richie, some of these are not going anywhere. They're going to stay with their teams. But I just picked out a few players that could be interesting to discuss potentially moving on. But we got, I'll just rattle off the list. We've got David Fifita, Morgan Harper, Nelson Asafa Solomona, Sean Johnson, Jazz Tavanga, David Clemmer, Dominic Young, Nathan Brown, Stephen Crichton, Brian To'o, Latrell Mitchell, Victor Radley, Luke Brooks, Adam Dowie. I'm getting that wrong again.
Dwayhe,
and Jackson Hastings. Now, Brooks, Adam, and Jackson, there's a little bit of a news story later on. But over that big list of names, as I said before the show, I think guys like Latrell and Victor Radley and that will stay where they are. But is there anyone in there that you think will find a new home?
Oh, yeah. I'll give you my Christmas wish list. If we could get Victor Radley, Stephen Crichton, Nelson Asafa Solomona, and maybe Clemmer, another prop. We will re-sign Jazz Tavanga as well. That'd be a nice Christmas wish list. No, I agree with you on a lot of those guys who probably re-sign To'o and the likes. Latrell Mitchell, I don't think he's going anywhere, but
no.
Yeah, be interesting to see what happens with a few other of those, especially with someone like David Fifita on the big bucks. Whether the Titans want to keep paying a premium for him or give him a pay cut or move him on. We shall see.
Sounding by all rumors, as we've talked on the show in previous weeks, it sounds like Fifita is on the way out of the Titans, and there's a few places that could be potentially willing to pick him up. Simon's Raiders have entered the chat. Dragons have been talked about. There's a lot of them there, but it gives us some hopefully exciting news to talk about in the next few weeks on if anyone does Isaiah Papali'i and signs a year early and potentially regrets it at the end of that time.
Yeah.
But we'll see. But yeah, I thought that was a good thing just to put out into the air now for when we have to discuss it in the next couple of weeks. But we'll keep our ears to the ground on that. And we'll get into a little bit of World Cup news. So Italy, several of their players suffered infections and could barely walk after playing on synthetic fields in the first 2 matches of the World Cup. I don't know if you saw the pictures. There were some pictures, and it wasn't great to look at while you're eating your breakfast. But
yeah,
what's your thoughts on that? It's
Oh
I've
mate,
never played on a synthetic
yeah,
field, so
I've got experience in this. Yeah, I used to play touch at College Rifles, living in Auckland, and they've got the artificial turf, and yeah, after playing a few games and diving around, you get some pretty nasty grazes that end up not very nice. So um,
Hey, can we just kind of just explain here how you're supposed to play touch? Are you're supposed to run around touching each other? It's diving business. Like it's not rugby. You're not
no,
supposed to be tackling.
I'm trying to score tries.
you got to die. You got to be evasive, and
Yeah,
diving
yeah,
helps.
um, yeah. Well, not a lot else helps my game. I just got to hope someone puts me into a gap and then I can dive. Hope I get there. But yeah, no, I'm not a fan of the synthetic fields for that reason, eh? But,
No, judging by this reaction, I don't think we'll see any news about the NRL trying to bring artificial surfaces into the NRL fields at the stadiums. So, yeah, unfortunate for Italy, didn't really help their case in what was already an uphill battle in their final
yeah,
match. But yeah, not good to see. But we'll follow that up with a bit more. I don't want to say lighthearted because it's still a serious issue, but a good news story out of the World Cup. So up to 12 Lebanon players chased a thief from their hotel and cornered him before handing him to the police. This was the second time the sides encountered thieves at the World Cup, but there was a whole lot of videos about all of them, some of them running in towels because they were on the massage table, chasing after this guy in the main streets of England. Did you hear about this news at all?
I didn't catch wind of it until you sent me some of the news, Brad. So I was hoping you could give me a bit of a rundown. Is it the second time that the Lebanon team has been targeted?
Yeah, second time the Lebanese have been targeted there.
Who's
So
got it in for them?
Paul is our resident our Englishman. What is the hatred you guys seem to have for the Lebanese people?
No, I'm just a bit surprised. I was going to be asking you kind of. Well, obviously it's Checker. It's all down to Czech. He's the one that's doing all this. But this is all part of his way of training and motivating his team. I think he's been hiring these people to come and do this. What did they nick?
They didn't really. They didn't really say. They said like they went into the hotel and they kind of just grabbed like a bag. At that point, and I think they were first time they were targeted. They were trying to get like their kit out of the bus. I think I'm not sure 100% on the first one, but yeah, it just showed this guy running down the streets with like a bag, and then all
these what Lebanese guys have got in their bags if they're that worried about it.
Yeah,
you don't want your stuff taken, regardless of what it is, Paul. But yeah, it's yeah, the police got there and took the guy away. And yeah, Simon said the cost of living is really bad in the UK, but he didn't realize it was that bad. Yeah, I think it would be a pretty low point for me if I had to steal, and I don't know if I'd steal from a footy team because I know I can't outrun them.
yeah, good point.
But yeah, interesting story. We might get some more news where we can talk about it next week if anything more comes to light about it. But we'll move on. We'll go back to the NRL for a little bit. We talked about a retirement last week. We've got another one. Josh Jackson from the Bulldogs has announced his retirement. I saw a stat. They said he averaged 23 games a season over the past 10 years. That's quite impressive with the wear and tear that the NRL players have to be that consistent for your game time. And they've said that he will remain with the Bulldogs in some capacity. They haven't said what that is yet. I have heard rumors that the Bulldogs were kind of pushing him to retire. And him retiring as he has given them an extra $500K in the salary cap, which will help them keep the likes of Matt Burton and a few other players at the club, hopefully for them. What's your take on the retirement? It's he's been around for a long time, been a key figure at the Bulldogs. Any thoughts?
Yeah, that stat you put out is a remarkable one. speaks to his durability, especially the way Josh plays, a defensive workhorse kind of player, a lot of body contact. So for him to have remained that durable over that period of time is pretty impressive. And he's sort of been the heart and soul of the Bulldogs and encompasses everything that the club's all about. So, sad to see him retire, but the Bulldogs making moves, like you say, it's going to free up a good chunk of cap space, and they've been wanting to make moves over the past couple of seasons to lift them off the foot of the table. So, could be a good thing if they get to keep some of the stars.
Yeah, and I understand with the way it is with him retiring, they're getting a chunk of change to the salary cap and him going straight into an office job. I believe the NRL has to give the okay. So we'll see. I don't see it being an issue, but we'll see what happens in that space. But we've got some signing news as well. Kevin Proctor, once well known a few months ago for being fired for vaping in the bathroom. He had no interest from the NRL and it looked like he was going to retire, but he's now signed a 2-year deal with Wakefield Trinity in the UK. Thoughts on that? He should have an easy life up there. He's still a very talented player. And it should be quite good for him in Wakefield. But what's your news on or your take on that news of him going over there?
It's good for him to find somewhere. Is obviously with what the shenanigans he got up to last year, he kind of left himself in not a very desirable position in terms of finding a contract. But nice to see he found a club that allows vaping in the bathroom.
Yeah. Paul said the same. What's the smoking rules at Wakefield? I have no idea. I'm sure they will let him know before he arrives. More news. It hasn't been confirmed yet, but I know we spoke a few weeks ago that Ruben Garrick was being heavily targeted by the Newcastle Knights. The talk out there now is that he's going to knock back their offer and extend his stay with Manly for another 4 years. It's interesting with all the dramas that's happening at Manly. It's interesting to see players want to stay, but on the other hand, it's not like going to the Knights seems that great either. So what's your take? I think Ruben's their goal kicker. There's talks about him moving into the centres as part of this extension, which will give him what he wants. He wants a bit more action rather than just being stuck on the wing. I think it's a good move by Manly. Goal kicking is important, which we'll come to in a question later on. But I think it's a good move for him to stay there. It all depends on what happens with Anthony Seibold, who still hasn't officially been confirmed as coach, but I think we all know that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, good. Good for Garrick if he wants to stay at Manly. You're right about him wanting to get more in the action. I kind of thought his desire was to play fullback, but if we were to go to Newcastle, probably doesn't have much chance there either if Kalen Ponga stays in that position. Not sure if he will or not. Maybe his best bet is hoping for Tommy Turbo to, He's got form when it comes to long-term injuries, so maybe that's what he's banking on. But centres, I think he'd go all right in the centres too. And like you say, good sharp shooter off the tee. So being one of Manly's better players over the past 2 years, and not this season, the one before, leading point scorer in the comp as well. So good move for Manly.
He was meant to be the leading point scorer this year as well. He threw off my prediction.
I know.
More signing news. English centre Oliver Gildart, who he is signed with the Dolphins. He originally had been with the Tigers, didn't really hit the ground running there. The Tigers kind of loaned him out to the Roosters, and I thought he did okay with the Roosters at the end there. So it's not a big surprise. The Dolphins kind of are desperate to still get some key players. And I think Gildart he has potential to actually grow in the NRL. a few players take a year. Like we saw Dom Young. Dom Young's kind of 10 times better player now than he was this time last year in his first year in the NRL.
Absolutely.
So I think it's a good move by the Dolphins. What's your take? Do you think that's a good move for them? It's not like they're getting any of the big names they've been targeting. So
yeah, 100%. And they need players. They need backline players. We know they've recruited quite well in the forwards, but I think he just needs an opportunity. You're right. He didn't hit the ground running with the Tigers, but it takes time. So I think with a decent enough opportunity and game time, we could see what he's made of.
Yeah, it really doesn't help if the team you're trying to hit the ground running with in the NRL is a team like the Tigers who weren't performing.
They're horrible.
It was very hard to look good in that team. So I'm sure he'll do well with the Dolphins. And he does have a connection with Wayne Bennett from Wayne Bennett's time with the England team. So Simon said he's amazed that Tigers loaned anyone out. But they did it with Norfoluma as well. They made a habit of it last year. I guess it was more of a send them to these places that have good teams and hopefully they bring some of that back. Maybe, I don't know. But next bit of news, former Warriors coach Stephen Kearney, currently with the Storm, is rumoured to be in talks to join the Broncos as an assistant coach. Interesting there. I think that just shows you that when Craig Bellamy hangs up the boots at the end of this year, like he said he would, that Kearney is not in the running to take over. Otherwise, he wouldn't be looking at leaving Melbourne. So what's your take on Kearney going back to Broncos?
Yeah, great. One of the great assistant coaches. Not a great head coach at all, but must make a great coffee. He's done a great job being a right-hand man to Bellamy. So, see how he goes.
Well, I'll show my ignorance straight away as the renowned coach that I never was. But the assistant coach is more like the horse whisperer, if you will. They like get in there and they talk. They're like the buddy compared to the head coach. And I think Kearney fits that mold a lot better. He's more personable. Which doesn't always work in a head coach capacity. I think it'll do well. I feel like Walters is kind of that way as well, though. So I've never been coached by either man, so I can't say. But it's a good move, I guess.
They're both going to be assistant coaches to Adam Reynolds anyway, aren't they?
Pretty much.
If you believe what Tyson Gamble says.
Yeah. We'll go to the Panthers. As we all know, the Panthers assistant coaches are no more. They're both gone off to battle for the wooden spoon in 2023. But the Panthers have named two new ones. Peter Wallace, former player, and Ben Gardner have both been announced as the new assistant coaches for Ivan Cleary. So we can earmark them to be head coaches at the Tigers, Warriors, Bulldogs or Manly in the next year or two. Good move for them. I don't really have any intel on how they are as coaches. But what's your take on the news? They had to sign someone.
Yeah, they did. And Peter Wallace was a very handy player at Penrith there, as well as other clubs. But I think it won't matter too much. They're going to slot into a pretty handy system there, and the Panthers machine's going to march on.
Yeah, definitely. And
as long as they make a good coffee.
Exactly. That's all that counts. And then really the last bit before we get into naughty boys and injuries is all about the Tigers, which I know Paul loves. He loves his Tiger pictures. The Tigers are still interested in signing Mitch Moses and or Dylan Brown, but they've also decided to add another eel to the list with Nathan Brown now on the radar. Nathan Brown was one of those players I mentioned in that list that are free to talk to clubs. Someone did apparently ask him at the World Cup, one of the media, about would he be interested in going to the Tigers, and he said he wouldn't he wouldn't say no. So that could be a possibility. I think he might be more likely than Moses or Brown. I don't know if anyone saw, I put it on the picture for our show, but Dylan Brown's been confirmed to be a Warrior now. So,
Love that.
He's got his Warriors jersey, so he'll be coming here instead. If we can just put that into the universe, I guess. But on the flip side of that, the Tigers have shown no interest in trying to re-sign Jackson Hastings or Adam Dwayhe. I see you shaking your head. I kind of have that same feeling. I don't understand.
I don't get it.
They potentially could get to a point where Mitch Moses and Dylan Brown both say no, and Hastings and Adam are signed with other clubs, and then they have no halves. Other than Luke Brooks, who apparently is being looked at being shipped off as well.
There were periods last year where the Tigers weren't so rancid. And who was leading the team round in those periods? It was when Jackson Hastings was on the field.
Yeah.
And we know Adam, the quality of Dwayhe. I mean, it's just the rest of their squad and setup and management down through coaching. Obviously, the coaching's been changed, but it's all the other pieces that seem to let the club down.
Yeah. To be honest, the Tigers, they have Api Carousel coming in to hook. You've got Jackson Hastings and Adam Dwayhe in your halves, and Dane Laurie in your fullback. That's actually not a bad spine. If they could actually build a team around that, rather than looking at replacing the spine and leaving everything else, leaving all the other rubbish there and changing the only good part you have, just doesn't seem like a way to do it. And it'd be fair to say that you're not paying those two they've got now ridiculous money like you would to get in Dylan Brown and Mitch Moses. And it's going to be interesting times. I feel like we talk every week about the Tigers and the mismanagement of that club. So I'm sure we'll get plenty more of that to talk about in the next few weeks and then next year. So that was all I had on the Tigers there. But the last bit, I didn't go into it too much because I think it's something we can talk about at a later date. But Western Australia have confirmed their interest in having an NRL team from their area be the next to join the competition. We have spoken about it before, about who the 18th team should be. But would you still be interested in a Western Australia team joining the mix?
A few days ago, I saw a pod of orcas in Wellington Harbour. I think that's a sign.
I think they need another team from Sydney. I don't think there's enough. But, each to their own.
Western Australia, your problem there is your time zone. Is you guys are going to be watching games at 3:00 in the morning.
Yeah, I have had to watch a Warriors game at midnight there before. But yeah, it's a long way away. It's not going to happen anytime soon. So that's probably a 2023 discussion point we're going to have a few times. But we'll get into injuries. There's not really a lot. Basically, there's most of the teams are gone now. So I really only wanted to look at teams that are still playing in the quarterfinals for the men. And there were two. There was Regan Campbell-Gillard from Australia. He suffered a cork and may not be ready for this week's quarterfinal. The teams haven't been named yet, so I can't confirm or not. I feel like if there's a bit of a cork, they'll probably let him have this one off to prepare him for the next one. And then Victor Radley from England injured his elbow in his side's win over Greece and could miss this week also. It didn't look pretty. It looked very similar to what happened to Ben Murdoch-Masila for the Warriors. His arm got in the tackle and went the wrong way. But it doesn't seem to have been as drastic since they're only really saying a week. But yeah, we're waiting for the details. And again, due to England and the time zone, they don't do the team namings like we used to. So we'll know closer. I think probably on Friday. Thursday, Friday is usually, I think, when the first one gets named. So we'll know from there. But what's your take on those? I think Victor Radley would be a massive loss for England. I think he's really been integral for them in that lock position. And Regan Campbell-Gillard been fantastic at this World Cup, but that depth with Australia, one falls down, they put a one just as good in the spot. So
You asked me my thoughts and then proceeded to say everything I was about to say. So.
That's what I do.
No, Regan Campbell-Gillard, fantastic. Aussie will cover him against Lebanon. Radley's a bigger loss, I think, in terms of England. He's been really big for them, and PNG are going to come out and throw the kitchen sink at them. So we shall see.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with Radley, and I'm going to use him as my segue because one thing that I expected to see that he hasn't is he's kept a level head. He's usually given away silly penalties or been sent to the bin, and he hasn't done that for England. So that's great, which does go into Naughty Boys because we've got two. One of them's from a team that isn't playing anymore, which is James Bell, former Warrior that plays for Scotland. He's being banned for a match for a grade A dangerous contact. I'm not sure how that's going to work now that Scotland's out. I assume that's just going to go off as Super League time potentially, or he's not allowed to play the next game for Scotland in like 5 years' time when they play internationals again.
Next World Cup.
And the other one, which does affect quarterfinals, is Jared Warrior-Hargreaves. He has got a one-match ban for his grade A high tackle, which did see him sent to the bin. What's your take on the head high for Jared?
From Warrior-Hargreaves? It bounced up off the chest a bit, Not a lot in it.
I didn't think of it. Yeah. It didn't look good.
No, it didn't look good. Honestly, the sin bin was.
I thought Simbin was fine. I know the Irish coach came out and basically said that should have been a red, and turned the tide, and that Ireland, still had a shot at that point when they weren't. I appreciate his optimism, but I don't think it was a red.
It wasn't that bad. It wasn't as bad as what the Irish coach made it out to be fair. It was bad enough for a sin bin, and completely not unexpected coming from Jared.
Yeah. He's just come. I suppose it is disappointing for him to come back from suspension only to get suspended again. But I think 1 week's fine. I'm glad they didn't go overboard, and basically take him out of the World Cup for a little head high that had no intent. I think if there was intent, I know a lot of people didn't like how aggressive it looked in a game against Ireland, which technically, was never going to be a true contest. But that's the aggressive play that everyone likes Nelson Asafa-Solomona for. So, you can't have it one way for the one player and a way for the next. Which I suppose is ironic because I dislike Nelson, but I like Jared. So Jared doesn't do it to the Warriors, I guess. But yeah, that's really all the news we had there. Hopefully there's no injuries in the quarterfinals. I want to see the semifinals have the strongest lineups possible, because we've been starved of actual competition in this World Cup so far. So fingers crossed that the injuries and Naughty Boy Corner stay relatively empty next week. So we may as well jump into the week of footy. As we've been doing for the World Cup, we've picked 4 games, or I've picked 4. I don't let Richard have a say. So I'll go through the other games.
This is Richie's starring pit. This is his section of the whole show. And
the NRL, in the NRL it is. I've taken it away in the World Cup. He's too biased to Samoa. So for the women, we'll go with them first. They started their competition this morning. The first 2 games, England women defeated Brazil 72-4, and the PNG women defeated Canada 34-12. So that was a bit more closer. The England-Brazil one-sided affair is what we're going to expect. Brazil are kind of the Jamaica of the women's competition. Great to see them make it, and hopefully they learn a lot from it. But you're not going to expect them doing anything. But they did score a nice try. I did get to see that this morning while I was working. But fantastic to see the women start up, and we've got some good games for them coming up this week, which we'll talk about in our preview section. But then the men, the games that we're not going to discuss in length. Australia defeated Italy 66-6. Lebanon defeated Jamaica 74-12. Samoa defeated France 62-4. And then PNG defeated Wales in the last game of the men's round robin 36-0. Which means we go into our 4 games that we are talking about, starting with the first game of the round, which was New Zealand defeating Ireland 48-10. I've taken all of your talking part for this thing, so I'll pass it to you now. What did you think of this game?
See, Brad didn't even select the Samoa game as one to talk about. He's trying to freeze me out with the Samoa.
It's all about Tonga now.
Disappointed, Brad. The Kiwis game. So I thought we were clunky. Honestly, I thought we weren't. We still look like a team that's building combinations. It was nice to see Jerome Hughes out there. As we've said, we've been wanting to see what we can with that whole spine there. And obviously, Jerome Hughes was fantastic. Probably our best player before he was taken off the field and wrapped in cotton wool. Biggest concern for me, and I won't go too deep of a dive into it because of your question. I know spoilers, but biggest concern for me was our goal kicking. We left a lot of points out
just
there.
Said the same.
Yeah, I mean, we left a lot of points out there. Although we weren't completely on our A game, this still should have been a 50, 60 point plus win. In a tight quarter or semi-final, that it's a concern.
It was a bit clunky. I would have liked. I know we have been harping on about it. I think they would have looked a lot better if Hughes had some more game time. This was like his first time. They admittedly Brown and Hughes did partner in the halves together against Tonga earlier this year, but that's the only time. So I think they needed more game time together. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But they got the job done. Ireland, we're always going to be the second hardest challenge for them in pool play, besides Lebanon. So I expected, I was looking more a 40 to 50 point win, which was kind of what we got. The goal kicking, I just can't. I don't understand. As you know, you, me, and Hammer from Ruin Hammer were kind of talking during the game and very upset about goal kicking. So that's something that needs to be addressed. But yes, that is going to be talked about later on. So we'll move to the next game. I suppose we didn't even talk about Ireland. Ireland, I think Simon mentioned it. Ireland just needed to develop more localized players instead of players from the UK and Australian expats. I think that's the same. It just, as we talked about last week about getting these lower teams more competitive, it's just going to take money and time. It's really all it is.
It's tough for them too because rugby union's booming for them at the moment, and they've obviously got other sports that they're going to be more interested in than rugby league. But
I can 100% see kids in Ireland more interested playing rugby union than rugby league right now, especially with what Ireland did to the All Blacks this year. You're just gonna it's just gonna take time. Definitely hard, but we'll move on to the next game with the highlight of the Northern Hemisphere, I guess you could say, with England. England defeating Greece 94-4. I don't think there's much to talk about here. We kind of were thinking the scoreline.
I just wanted.
I picked the 2 games.
To talk there about England, absolutely. I mean, Richie, we need your match report here running through every single scorer, please.
No chance.
17 try scorers in this game. I wanted to pick the 2 games that cracked 90. That's why I picked it.
Fair enough.
But 17 tries, and unlike New Zealand, they only missed a handful of conversions, which helped that
Mm.
score. And yeah, Greece did score a try. I thought we were going to see them barely get to touch the ball, and that was kind of the case. But I think they had 38% possession. They had the ball for 14 minutes. And yeah, they were dominated everywhere as they were expected to be. England continue to surprise me. I'm going to say it every week. I basically had them not even making the semis before the World Cup started, finishing second in their pool, and they've done nothing but prove me wrong. So they can join the list of many, I guess, when it comes to this show, proving me wrong. But yeah, Dominic Young scored again. How many?
Yeah.
I've got it here. 1, 2, 3, 4. He got 4 tries.
4, yeah.
4 tries. Ryan Hall got another double. They're just great everywhere. It's your question kind of covers it a bit, but I think England just look great, and they need a lot more respect shown to them, which I think is starting to happen. I'm stubborn, so it'll probably come at the very last minute for me, but I know a lot of the media is kind of giving them the credence they deserve. And like Simon said, England has 12 teams to pick players from and a second division. They do have the depth, and they also have Super League NRL players as well. They don't have as many as the other teams, but Dom Young, Victor Radley, right off the top. But thoroughly dominant display there, and no Callum.
Get it off, Brad.
No.
I think
so.
we always talk about the Super League not being at the same standard as the NRL, but I think when you take the sum of all the parts and take the best of the best out of there and put it all together, they still put out a handy team, don't they?
Yeah, they do. We just have to see what happens when they actually have some competition, because it's fair to say they haven't had a competitive match yet. We all expected that with Samoa. They were on island time and came a week late. So, we'll see this week. They do have a tough matchup. They should win it fairly easily if you go by what we've seen here, but it'll give them a challenge, which we want to see. And Simon's kind of going with what I'm thinking now. He said, I think they'll make the semi-finals, but they won't make the final. That's kind of what I'm picking, but I've been wrong so many times in this World Cup already. Next game, though, Fiji defeated Scotland 30-14. I picked this because it was the only tight match of the week, and I thought it was actually quite a good game. Did you catch it?
Yes, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
It was quite a good game. I don't think Fiji were on top form as we saw the week prior, but I thought Scotland were brave and improved from what we're seeing from them, and that they gave Fiji a pretty decent run. But
you can't be rolling out the cliches, clang, Scotland the brave. Jeez.
Well,
that
picked
was all
up.
Richard. That wasn't me. Shoddy journalism there, Richie.
Sorry,
but continue.
Yeah, I'm not sure I see enough from Fiji to give me too many concerns for the quarterfinals coming up, but I won't go out on a limb and call it early, because I remember what happened last World Cup.
Yes, and the only game that they've played against New Zealand. They're undefeated against New Zealand.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a great game for them.
Yeah.
Scotland put up more fight than I thought. I thought this was going to be another blowout. But Scotland showed some good fight. A few sin bins, which always makes games more enjoyable to me. Scotland had 2. Fiji had 1 with Cacao. Would have been nice to see Cacao get a week. Really would have liked to have Fiji without him in the quarterfinals. But it was a great contest, and hopefully we get to see more of that in the upcoming weeks, because it's something we seriously have missed in this World Cup so far. Which goes into the last one we're going to talk about. Another close affair. Tonga defeated Cook Islands 92-10. I expected the Tongans to win, but I thought Cook Islands would have more of a fight. I thought this might have been like a 40-20 type scoreline, maybe. But yeah, Tonga have really just got into the groove now. And I think it was Jason Tomalolo's first game back, and he kind of made the most of
well,
it.
didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
What's your take on this? This is obviously the team that Simon's predicting to defeat England in the semi-final. But what's your take? Well,
I
just
caught this
guessing.
game delayed.
I assume.
I caught this game delayed, and I watched the Samoa game before it, and I think I was crying to you on Messenger saying how good Samoa looked, and I'm a bit worried for Tonga. But then I saw Tonga's scoreline, and it brought me back down to earth a bit. Was definitely not expecting it, and I did watch the replay, and man, that was just one-way traffic. I was expecting a bit more out of the Cook Islands, but yeah, Tonga went to town. They cashed in. they didn't miss.
Yeah, and Nicholas says, I assume tongue-in-cheek, but really underwhelming performance from Tonga. They couldn't even crack the 100. Lackluster. I think it's a good. I think it's very hard to crack 100 now, to be honest. If anyone was going to do it, I thought England would have done it against Greece, and even they couldn't. But Tonga. They needed to put Cook Islands away. Cook Islands had put up some close games earlier on as well. So, yeah, just disappointing for them to end on that type of scoreline in the World Cup. But, yeah, Tonga, you as you said, you didn't see this game live, so you didn't know the scoreline yet when you were talking up Samoa. I had, which is why I said I think Tonga are going to do okay. But, yeah, it has got. It's probably going to be the quarterfinal of the week in my eyes. That game.
Definitely.
Fantastic outing, and so that means that we're only down to 8 teams left in the World Cup there. But we'll go into questions now before we talk about the next round. Any questions from anyone in the crowd there, Paul?
Well, I guess one from me. How worried should we be about the Dolphins and if we got to this stage and they still don't have a squad? I mean, how should we start being concerned about how prepared they're going to be for next year?
I think they'll be more worried that their coach is going to not make it through the year. But it's hot in Redfern. But
I'm sure they can afford air conditioning.
Yeah, I think they'll be fine. I think that they're gonna. They've kind of always said that 2023 isn't their year. They're looking at 2024 when they're actually going to start. It's just like, this is the year they have to start. We're going to just throw a team together and hope for the best. And it won't be pretty, but I think they're aiming at the next year, which is, I still feel they were given a year too little for preparation. So 2024 would kind of fit with the time they should have needed. I did see a question earlier though, Paul. I'll let Richard answer now while I find it. You got some input, Richie?
Yeah, I will once I know what it is. Yeah.
So Andrew.
No, my question first, Richie.
You got to answer Richie's question.
Yeah. Paul's question. Are you concerned about the fact that the Dolphins don't have a squad yet? Are they basically just going to get walloped every game next year, like 100-0? Is it going to be like a Rugby League World Cup group stages game every week? And is that really any good?
No, that doesn't concern me in the slightest because we need more teams. We need more teams that are going to finish below us.
Cool. Okay. So Andrew says, what do you think about the rumours of the pre-season comp returning? He's all for it. He loved the old two knees challenge in the 90s.
Yeah, I haven't heard the rumours myself, but I am all for it. Anytime that the Warriors potentially might have a chance of winning something, I'm down for. So as long as the only thing we don't win is a wooden spoon, I'm in.
mean,
But yeah, and
are you still having the I mean, you had the Auckland Nines. Is that still that pre-season thing? Still
no,
Nah.
you've been on the show long enough, Paul. You know the NRL doesn't like New Zealand. They gave that to Perth.
So it still exists, but in a different place.
They haven't done it for a while though. And yeah, I see Nicholas corrected me. Once again, I called Redcliffe Redfern. Australia just needs to be more creative with their names. As always, I'm not taking responsibility. That is Australia's fault,
Yes,
not mine.
The Billabong Dolphins.
Yeah. It's been a long season, Nicholas.
Simon's like he doesn't like it. Should leave pre-season the way it is. You can take it too seriously.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
But as a person who writes about the Warriors, I have to really invest in how they perform in the preseason when I do my season preview. So if they're in a tournament and do well in it, it would help me with my writing as I try to predict the next 6-7 months. But yeah,
just look at the last 6-7 months. You got a pretty good idea of what's going to happen.
Pretty much.
Oh no, sorry. Next year's your year, guys. Don't worry. Next year's your year.
We are. We didn't mention it because we are the one now. So
sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, the one.
We are the one now. I forgot. As of yesterday, we are now the one New Zealand Warriors. I forgot to talk about.
Yeah, it's an awfully long kind of name, isn't it? At the end of the day, as well.
It is.
It's getting a bit. The one New Zealand. Yeah. What do you think of the? Someone asked, what do you think of the Spark sport coverage of the NRL? The Rugby League World Cup. Sorry.
Did you get Spark, Richie?
Yes, I did.
What?
Do you want?
I'll let you
do you
go
want my
first.
input?
Then. Yeah. What's your input?
What you asked me that? Didn't you? Don't you have it?
I do have it. I just didn't know if you had it or not.
Yeah, no, I do. I got it. Particularly
Those
for this tournament.
illegal streams obviously would do that because he's a nice man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough to find the illegal streams.
It's been honestly, it's been not too bad for the Rugby League World Cup. I've had more issues with it when I've been watching the Women's Rugby Union World Cup for some reason. I've had a few cutouts there, but otherwise been okay for me.
Yeah, I've had no issues, Simon and Paul. I've seen a lot of people on Facebook complaining that they can't watch it and it keeps cutting out. I've had none of that. The only one I had was before the New Zealand Ireland game when I put it on our TV in the lounge. For some reason, it had zoomed in. So I could see like only the top left corner. So I saw like the corner of people's faces and I went back out, went back in and it was fine. That was the only issue for me there. But yeah, I've had no connection issues, no buffering. And that's watching it on our smart TV in the lounge, on my phone or my desktop at my work. Wherever I've seemed to watch it, I've had no issues. So really happy with it so far. Doesn't mean I'm keeping it. As soon as the World Cup's finished.
Are they just rebroadcasting someone else's coverage, or are they adding their own? Are we having a good Kiwi magazine show or anything?
Nothing that I've seen. I've only been watching the games, though. It doesn't look like they're doing a wrap-up. It looks like you get the game live. They have a replay of it, and they have a highlights package. But it all just seems to be stuff they've taken from, I assume, Sky Sport in the UK.
So so no value add, unfortunately.
Not really. There were, I think, before the World Cup started, they had a few like 2-minute interviews with Kiwi players. And Simon said he thinks that there's an international feed, and that's where they're getting it. Not really anything different, and but I've got no complaints with it. It serves the purpose. Would I have preferred it to be with someone I'm already paying lots of money to watch sport on? Yes, but it is what it is.
And that's kind of the problem, isn't it? With this is that they're not, as they've not got any other rugby league kind of coverage outside of this. What's the point in building a rugby league audience and growing the sport with a cool magazine show and all that kind of stuff when basically they know that everyone's going to leave at the end of this anyway because they've got nothing else to hang their hat on afterwards. Yeah,
and I don't think there's any way they're ever going to get the NRL off Sky. I think that's if they would have to try to get the NRL or the Super League to make it a viable model to try to grow league fan base, but I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, now Sky's got the Rugby Union World Cup wrapped up for the foreseeable future. As well. You do wonder, is Spark Sport actually going to exist in a couple of years' time? What have they got?
I just do want to say, watching the Kiwis on Spark with Kiwis have Sky as one of their sponsors on their jersey is, I guess that's a win for Sky. They're getting advertising on Spark.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it kind of feels weird that Sky didn't try to beat them for the World Cup when they sponsor a team that's in it. But I don't know the money that was thrown down, so I don't know. But yeah, I think Spark's been fine so far for what they've delivered. I wasn't expecting, like weekly rundowns or anything of that. I just wanted to watch the games, especially at the times that they play them. I don't really want to watch early morning discussions.
That's what we're here for.
Come on to the watch the standoff show.
Yeah.
Why bother having?
Exactly. This is as good as
exactly,
you get.
and I don't want their opinions to affect what I say here. With all the research I do, so I would avoid them anyway. But yeah, and yeah, Simon said Sky's been tight with their money recently, which is true. You got to spend money with what you think you're going to get back. But
cool. That's all the questions from the live chat, guys.
Cool. So I'll go with my one first because it's going to flow into your one.
Yeah, go on.
But I've said we talked about it briefly, but the Kiwis have had an issue with goal kicking. Do you think this could cost them big time in the knockout stages?
I think it has great potential to do so. Like I was kind of saying to you earlier, I'm less so concerned about Fiji. Not to say that they blatantly don't have a chance, but should we see off Fiji and then go up against Australia, it becomes a concern because they've got goal kickers in their team that won't miss. They play Cleary; he's a sharpshooter. They're going to go up in sixes, and if we're not going to go up in sixes, we're going to need to outscore them in tries by a fair bit. So it is a concern, honestly.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same. I was looking at the Australian team and going, they've basically got a whole back line of goal kickers. Surely they could just give us one. They don't even have to give us their best one. But I don't know. They got Cleary, they got Mitchell, DCE can goal kick. Val Holmes.
Yeah.
They got so many of them there, and we're struggling to find one. That will have a good night week in, week out. It's just very hard. I think Rapana will still be given those honours. I think he's still the best of a bad punch. But yeah, it is concerning. You need accuracy when it comes to like semis and finals at least. So yeah, I am a lot more worried than the very braggadocio person before the World Cup started. But yeah, that kind of goes into your question to me.
Yeah, so I'm picking that Tonga and Samoa will be a pretty evenly contested quarterfinal. So out of Lebanon, Papua New Guinea, and Fiji, which underdog, if any, has the most potential to cause a headache for the big three in the quarterfinals, and why?
So I think it's a bit unfair to call Lebanon the underdogs. They're going to beat Australia. Easy. It's going to be the blind side. No one saw coming. No, out of all of them, I think Fiji. I don't see any of them beating. I don't see Lebanon, PNG, or Fiji winning. I think PNG will be the toughest challenge England's faced so far, but I still think England will get it. But I'm putting it all down to goal kicking. I think Wakeham didn't miss a single goal in that game Fiji played this week, so he's kicking accurately, and they have beaten them in a quarterfinal before, so they've had history with it. So that one there, but yeah, Simon said Papua New Guinea could most likely cause an upset. I think, I don't think England will be taking them lightly, which I think doesn't help Papua New Guinea. England won't be like Samoa was against England and go, this is an easy win for us. But yeah, PNG have the potential as well, but I think Fiji is the most likely just down to goal kicking. If the Kiwis are kicking goals blindfolded again, it could cost them. But I just don't see it happening, but that's the most likely.
I kind of thought, yeah, I'm on the same wavelength as you. I think we should have too much class for Fiji, but I wouldn't write Fiji off completely, is my feeling. And also Papua New Guinea. I feel like England have pretty much marched through scoring bucket loads of points. And if PNG go in there, throw the kitchen sink, make it a dogfight, they've got some bruising athletes, so they could make it uncomfortable for England.
Yeah, they've got to play a physical game, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And that goes into week 4. So I've broken it up because now we've got all the games. It's going to be super fun next week. But the women's tournament. So we have, before our next show, we've got New Zealand versus France, Australia versus Cook Islands, England versus Canada, Papua New Guinea versus Brazil, New Zealand versus Cook Islands, and Australia versus France. So we've got the rest of this round and the second round starting before our next show. And then the wheelchair tournament starts as well. That's also just 2 rounds like the women's. But we've got Spain versus Ireland, England versus Australia, France versus Wales, Scotland versus USA, England versus Spain, Australia versus Ireland, France versus Scotland, and Wales versus USA. I don't know how in depth, unless there's a real boomer of a game in the women's or in the wheelchair. We probably won't discuss them at length next week, but I'm really looking forward to actually watching a wheelchair game. As Simon said he's looking forward to it because he's never seen it. I've never watched it before either, so I really am interested in watching. Everyone seems to be talking up England and Australia, which seems to be a trend for all 3 tournaments. So that's probably going to be the one on Friday that I'll try to get a hold of, depending on what time it is, because I do have to work, kind of. I'm just bringing up my spreadsheet. I got a spreadsheet of all the games and times, so I'm just bringing that up on my other screen. Super professional to do it now. They're 8:30 Friday morning, so that probably is perfect. I'll watch that while I'm working. My boss isn't watching. It'll be fine. We'll make it work. And yeah, France. Simon said that France is good as well. France do play at midnight Friday night, so Saturday morning, against Wales. So that could be one to watch. And then obviously, women, New Zealand and Australia and England are kind of the favourites there. So I'll probably wait. I know the final game of the round robin is Australia versus New Zealand and women's. That's probably going to be the game of the tournament for that there.
Yeah.
But we'll move on to the quarterfinals. If Paul has the image I sent him earlier, I made a pretty little picture of the quarterfinals. But we have first up, we have Australia versus Lebanon. You putting Lebanon down as your winners there, Richie? Or you backing Australia?
No,
like
I think
coward?
Australia, mate.
Coward.
It's got to be Aussie, I think.
It has to be, right? It has to be. I'm hoping Lebanon showed a lot more fight against New Zealand than I thought they would. So I'm hoping to see more of that against Australia. I know Adam Dwayhe came out and said, we almost bet the number 1 ranked team. We're going to take it to Australia. So hopefully that confidence flows through into a good performance.
They were good in their last game too.
They were. And then next up, we have England versus Papua New Guinea. I don't see England losing this, but I think Papua New Guinea just have to be physical. And Simon said he thinks Australia will win, but Lebanon will qualify for the next World Cup, which is a massive achievement for them. Yeah, I think they've definitely put themselves into like the tier 2 of World Cup caliber teams. So that's a great win for them. But yeah, Australia would be too strong. England, Papua New Guinea got to be physical. They've really got to take it to them.
Yep.
England haven't had anyone really push them, so that's Papua New Guinea's job.
Yeah, I think England as well. Their form's too good, but yeah, I really hope Papua New Guinea give a good account of themselves and make it uncomfortable for England.
Yeah, definitely. And then the game we're probably more interested in watching as biased New Zealanders, but New Zealand play Fiji. I think we just talked about it, but yeah, I think New Zealand will get this, but they've really got to watch their goal kicking and not take Fiji lightly, because Fiji have some talented players that could upset them, and they've done it before. So I really don't want to see it happen again. But yes, as Simon said, he hopes the Kiwis win, but it's a potential banana skin game for Fiji.
Yeah, agree with that completely, Simon. There's a potential banana skin, but I think New Zealand, if they play to their potential, man for man, they should have too much class.
Yeah, and then the last quarterfinal should be the game of the week, Tonga versus Samoa. Simon's already apologized to you because he thinks Tonga's going to win. I think Tonga are going to take your Samoan team and drive them into the ground so they never want to play again. I think it's going to be an annihilation. I don't know, but I'm very biased. I love my Tonga and I don't like Jerome Luai. So I don't know. I think it should be a really good match, but I just think Tonga are too strong.
Don't talk about 2 games in a row, man of the match, Jerome Luai, like that, Brad. Samoa are going to win, and I'm going to overload my car windows with Samoa flags. There you go.
I'm seeing a lot more of them than usual in Auckland. There's still the Tongan flags as we come to expect, but I'm seeing a lot more Samoan flags this year. And Simon said, do we think Matt's job's safe right now? To be honest, I'm surprised Matt Parrish has the job as it is. We talked about it a bit last week, but I think he's the biggest issue for Samoa's league team right now. Half the players don't even want to play for him. So I think we've probably seen the end of Matt Parrish once Samoa end their World Cup, if it's this weekend or if it's next weekend or the weekend after. You know, who's to say Samoa don't beat Tonga and then don't beat England and then, you know, make the final? They do have talent. It's no denying that. But yeah, I think they'll be going the plane home to Australia next week. Unfortunately for Richie, when I gloat about it when we review the games next week. Anything else you want to add before we move on, though, Richie?
Sorry, Brad, I lost you for a moment there.
Yeah, never paying attention to me. Story of my life.
No, it's not that. The connection's been a bit dodgy tonight. I've been catching glimpses here and there. But no, thanks for the World Cup chat, everybody. Hopefully, come next week, we're talking about a New Zealand versus Australia semi and a Samoa about to beat England semi-final.
Maybe, or we're talking about a Fiji-Lebanon semi, because Australia and New Zealand, you know, collapse and no one saw it coming. But I know it should be good. I'm really looking forward to the quarterfinals. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you tonight for joining us on the standoff with Brad and Richie. For your weekly update on rugby league, tune into the show next week at 8 p.m. here on Facebook or at your convenience on iHeartRadio. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. Cheers for joining me again, Richie. Thanks for your help in the background, Paul, and good night, everyone.